Well, we're here today, a beautiful sunny day in Reno, and we're here to talk to Colonel John LaVoy. The Colonel was born in October of 1919 in Sparks, Nevada. He was a son of Hazel McCarty and Louis LaVoy. John started school at Robert Mitchell School in Sparks, but after a short stay in Sparks school system, the family transferred to Imlay, Nevada, where they lived for 3 years before returning to Sparks. That must have been quite a youth you had.
Yes, it was.
Yeah?
Yes.
St. Thomas Aquinas was where you went? Or?
Yeah.
And did you have a lot of friends at St. Thomas and get in a lot of trouble while you were there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He enrolled at Northside Junior High, which was located out on Lake Street and was then known as the University Avenue, but it's now Center High School. He followed that time with his classmates, and they moved to Reno High School, and where the Sundowner Hotel is today. And in 1940, he joined the Beta Kappa fraternity over at the University of Nevada. And then in December 7th of 1941, there was a kind of a shock that happened, wasn't there?
Yep.
Yeah, we had, what had happened in 1941?
World War II started. World War II started.
Oh, yeah, World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was quite a shock.
Yeah, I say it was.
And how did that impact you?
How did what?
How did that impact you?
Well, I knew I was involved immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something you wanted to just jump in and do?
Yep.
Yep.
Tell them that you wondered where Hawaii.
Huh?
Tell them you wondered where Pearl Harbor was.
You what?
You wondered where Pearl Harbor was. Right?
Oh. Yeah. Somebody said, you know, Pearl Harbor. I said, where the hell is Pearl Harbor?
Well, you immediately went to San Francisco to enlist.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty patriotic, Colonel. And once you got in there, you enlisted as a seaman second class for naval aviation training.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It was your desire to fly airplanes.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that something that you developed as a young man that you wanted to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell them you flew at the university.
Huh?
You flew at the university.
Oh, yeah. The university program I flew.
They had a program there.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. So you had a lot of different people that you had to compete against.
Oh, yeah.
To get into the airplanes, and so you went after that. Let's move right. You got involved in World War II, and you got involved in the training. And what were some of the first aircraft that you flew in that training?
Oh, dear. Probably the Beechcraft.
Yeah. So was that like the SNJ or something like that? And the old,
the SNJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I noticed on your sheet that you flew the old Stearmans.
Yeah.
N3N.
Yeah. N3N.
And the N25.
N2S.
N2S, the SNV, the SNJ.
Yeah, the SNJ.
A lot of trainers there.
Boy, that brings memories back.
Oh yeah, SP24. What about the memory that it brought back on that SNJ, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that was quite an airplane. That
It was. Yeah, it was great.
And then you flew the SP2U, the SPD, the F4U,
Yeah.
the F9F,
Yep.
F7F, I'm sorry. And which one did you fly in World War II in combat, or did you get into combat there?
Yeah. What was it?
SPD.
The SPDs.
The SPDs,
You were a dive bomber.
Yeah.
the dive bombers.
Mm-hmm.
You and President Bush.
Yeah.
So then, after that, you got involved in Korea.
Yeah.
After World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And in Korea, what did you fly?
The helicopter.
Huh?
The helicopter.
The helicopters?
Was that the H-05?
Probably.
The Bells and the Hughes? Let's see, that would have been the HSU, the HRS?
HRS.
HRS,
Yeah.
okay. That was just about the time I was being born, was World War II, so I don't remember those helicopters.
You're just a kid.
Well, I was less than a kid. Okay.
is when they got out there, they had never flown SBDs before. And so here these planes arrived and they didn't know how to fly them, so they read the manuals real quickly, and all of them learned how to fly the SBDs by the seat of their pants.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
I think that's very
It
interesting.
is amazing.
Yeah.
So, and so where, most of the time in World War II, where were you stationed at? In one of the islands?
Where was it?
Or aboard ship, or?
No, he was on the islands.
On the islands.
American Samoa first,
Yeah,
and then from American Samoa, they went to Eniwetok.
okay,
And then from Eniwetok, that's where they were bombed and everything. And they made their raids on at Ponape Islands in the Carolina Islands. And that's where they carried the 1,000-pound bombs. And then he came home from Engebi, and he was only home for 9 months. We were back at Cherry Point when he was called again, 9 months. And then he ended up going to Hollandia with VMSV 244, and they were in the Philippines and Malabang. And then from there they went up to Okinawa, and then to Tsingtao, China. And then in Tsingtao, China, they flew the China Wall Patrol because Mao was coming down. And Chiang Kai-shek was the chief honcho there. But he was trying to have the Marines, keep Mao from coming and overtaking everything. So he was in Tsingtao, China.
and then, when you came back from World War II, you went to Quantico? Is that where
El Toro.
El Toro?
El Toro,
You
yeah.
came back into El Toro,
Remember, you were in charge of special services.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Did you get any flying done, or was it mostly just working in special?
No, it's flying too.
Got some flying done too?
Yeah.
The F-4Us
So you were flying the F-4Us at that time,
Yeah.
and the F-7s.
Yeah, the F7F.
the F-7F.
And tell him about Bob Cameron from Reno being your CO.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy from my hometown was my CO, Bob Cameron.
I'll be darned.
That's when you were in the photo squadron.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Then
So when did you get married during all of this?
you better get the date right.
1919.
1919. You have a little sense of humor.
Okay, when were we married?
When?
When?
Oh, in 48, I guess.
Oh, no. Oh, I give up. September 26, 1944.
Oh, 44, okay. Well, I was only off a couple of years.
Yeah, I know that. And we were married at the cathedral here in Reno,
I'll be darned.
right down on 2nd Street, just a block from where you're staying.
Yeah. It was a rough go. She didn't want to get married.
So how'd you convince her? Did you tell her what a great life she was gonna have?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
USMC aviator?
Yeah.
Yeah, here I was gonna go teach school in Yerington when he came home. My brother had been killed in World War II, and I was so afraid that something would happen to John. Yes.
So, when you got married, did you go out to the East Coast then, at Cherry Point, or?
We went to Cherry Point.
Yeah.
And then John was, he was only there a short time at Cherry Point when they sent him to, what did they call that school? Air Ground Officer School. He went to Quantico.
Okay.
And I lived in Washington, D.C. with another officer's wife. And John and Phil would come in on the weekends. And we loved Washington. It was wonderful at that time. Being young, everything was great. Remember the most marvelous thing we saw when we were at that fancy old Willard Hotel? Remember the Russian man that came in with those boots clear
Oh, yeah.
his thighs?
Yeah.
The elegant Russian officer. And he had a French woman with him with when the feathers were so popular on the hats. She was a French, elegant lady. And John and I, being hicks from the country, We just stood there.
So you got into some, you got done with World War II and got that behind your belt. And Korea was right there on the horizon, and so you had to do something with Korea.
You went to Anglico, Air Naval Ground
Yeah,
Officer
my
School.
hearing aid's going bad, honey.
Okay, I'll go get you another one. Well, you know, as I say, I'm sorry I didn't send that to you so that you could, you know.
Well, we're going to do fine with that right here. And as a result of going to Anglico and getting to that school, you got involved with some of the early real involvement with close air support of Marines. And so you were training at Lejeune for that. And then after that, you went down to Ellison Field at Pensacola.
In 1951.
That was in 1951.
In fact, he is one of the oldest helicopter pilots in the country. The only person that I know that is one number ahead of him is Glenn Ferguson, who lives down in California.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's a real pioneer with the helicopters.
Absolutely, because I was just reading this, and that's exactly what I was thinking. You returned up to Camp Lejeune, now we call it now the New River Complex, and then you got orders to Korea. And you were at VMO 6 of the 1st Marine Air Wing. So you were over there about a year flying combat up on the front lines, and you were working with medevac and evacuating Marines for various reasons. That had to have been some of the very early medevac years. And do you want to say anything about those medevac years?
Tell them about the boy that you couldn't save. The one that you were taking the hospital ship. You were going behind the lines and picking up the wounded. And that one boy that you had on the outside of the helicopter.
Don't tell them about it.
Oh no, it's you. Well, anyway, he had this boy on the sling on the side of the helicopter. And threw up, and he couldn't do anything to help him. And of course, the boy died.
Sad deal.
Oh, and tell him how cold it was there. Tell him how cold it was.
Oh yeah, it was just miserable.
How did that affect the helicopters?
Well, it made it rough.
Tell him what they did with the oil. Tell him what they did.
Yeah, they had to keep the oil in hot pots, you know, before they started and whatnot. So they pour that hot oil in, keep the engine warm.
So they would drain the oil at night and keep it hot and put it in the morning? Wow, that's cold. And so you were there about a year, and then you returned to El Toro? You came back to El Toro for a short time, and then you were, that's been the school.
4 months.
4 months, but you were part of that was up at Santa Ana, which they called the Marine Corps Air Facility at Santa Ana. Later, which became in the history of the Marine Corps, came the Marine Corps Air Station at Santa Ana, and then I think in modern times it became the Marine Corps Air Station Tustin, they even called it. So it's had quite a history too. But you got word then about the Chinese, and the Chinese were on the move again, and so your squadron got deployed to the Orient again. So
you were in Gifu. You were in Gifu.
Gifu, Japan. So did you go by ship? Okay. And then you helped rescue Japanese civilians that were part of a flood that was going on in 1954-55 time frame. School children. Evacuated from their school grounds. Marine helicopters still do that today, don't they?
Sure enough.
You guys started that. You have a favorite keepsake, don't you? Isn't it a long scroll of drawings by Japanese children I heard about?
We have it, the pictures of the children.
Oh yeah.
And they gave that to you?
I still have those.
Showing the helicopters helping rescue them. Okay. And then you came back from Japan, John, and once again you came back to El Toro, but it wasn't for long. So from there you decided you wanted to go to Hawaii?
Yeah,
And they listened to you and they sent you there.
yeah, for a change.
And so you were at Kaneohe Naval Air Station on Oahu.
Yep.
That's before Hawaii was a state.
Right, that was. Now, I've got to get my history going in my head here because I'm talking to a legend here.
Well, I don't know.
I've got to get this down right. You were named Mr. Rescue. Why was that?
I suppose on account of,
You rescued so many people out of the ocean, down pilots from the Air Force,
yeah,
fishermen that were out, people that were on boats, that the boats were
yeah,
sinking.
got tabbed, that's Mr. Rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the most interesting story about the whole thing is he got a call, because we lived on the base at Kaneohe there, but the young lieutenants and whatnot, they wanted to go out partying on the weekend, but John was there, so he said, go ahead and go and I'll take charge of it. And one day he got a call and he went out, clear out in the north end of Oahu, and 3 young men, signs every place, do not swim because of the riptide, do not swim. And here they were, out swimming, and the riptide got them, and so their girlfriends, who were smart enough to stay on the beach, they called in, and of course they called John, and before he got there, a man who was building a house there took the door off of his house and floated out on it, and managed to have them hang onto the door until John got there and got them up in the slings. And John gave them hell. He gave all 3 of them hell, and he gave the man hell too for being so stupid as to being out there. Well, it turns out the man was the real hero, and he was the man that owned Candace's Broiler, Candace's restaurant, which was the fanciest restaurant on Oahu. And here John just giving him hell, and here the man was the real hero. And so, not too long after that, we were invited to dinner at Candace's Broiler. And I got to meet the man, and John apologized to him for calling him so many names for being stupid.
Swallow your tongue.
let's talk a little bit about what happened then. You got orders for Edenton, North Carolina.
Edenton.
Edenton, North Carolina. And you were an XO.
Uh-huh.
Became the XO to MABS 14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Charlie Boggs was your CO.
Yep.
Okay. And you were flying fixed-wing aircraft. Then you left helicopters back to fixed-wing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you became the CO of the outfit.
Mm-hmm.
So that was your first command. And then you returned to the field at Cherry Point. And tell us a little bit about the university situation that happened there.
Excuse me just a minute.
So this wasn't your first CO. You were, actually, this is the 3rd time you were the CO. You were a CO at Kaneohe, and then you were a seafood, and prior to that, you were a CO at Gifu in Japan. So this was your 3rd rock out here. So you've been in that command business for a while. But you started taking courses at the University of Hawaii while you were there, and then you took some from Eastern Carolina College at night, and that helped you to be eligible for a program called Bootstrap.
Yep.
And you elected at that time to attend the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
Yep. Yep.
And so then how'd you get your flight time?
You flew off it.
Oh yeah, I flew off at Air Force Base.
They let you come over and do some flying over there.
Yep.
How was it flying with the Air Force?
Oh, great.
That's good. Okay, so now we're in about May of 1961. Okay, you received your degree. You got all of that done. And so you got an immediate assignment to the senior school at Quantico. And this is what we call now today, I believe, the Staff and Command College.
Is that right? Yeah.
I think so. And that develops you, nowadays it's what we use to jump into the higher command, and this was, at that time, was what they were preparing you for, that school. So you've got a bunch of officers in there, different countries as well as Marine officers, and you left there in May of 1962, graduated from there. Okay? That's when I was getting out of high school. Just thought I'd throw that in, Colonel.
You have to turn the knife, don't you?
Orders once again sent you to El Toro again.
Yeah.
And you were assigned to headquarters squadron, MAG 16. So this was probably your first time with the Air Group 16 that you were going to spend some very serious time with.
Yeah.
Vietnam, that was MAG 16.
Yep.
So they wanted you, and you became the CO of Marine Medium Helicopter Squadron 364.
Yep.
Okay, and you took that squadron of a bunch of young, inexperienced helicopter pilots, Marines, full of piss and vinegar, and you had to take them across.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how I heard the story anyway. And your heroics, believe it or not, really are legendary. And they are legendary in the Marine Corps. And your proudest time for that, I understand, was the fact that you got 24 airplanes and over there, and only one of the planes was shot down.
8.
There are 8 of them?
8.
Okay. There were 8 planes shot down, and you never lost any of your personnel.
Yep. That was a miracle.
That is a miracle, Colonel.
Yep.
Not one man.
Brought everybody back that took over.
That had to have been a great feeling. Great feeling of accomplishment. And then you picked up another combat medal from this record, and you picked up the Legion of Merit with a V, correct? Okay. Now, I remember this guy that they're going to talk about now next, Major General Wallace Green.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I came into the Marine Corps in 1967, he was a commandant.
Yep.
And so he was a commandant then, and that's amazing. So this is about the time when I was actually coming into the thoughts of the Marine Corps, and you were already well on your way to becoming a legend here. You were cited by the President for inspiring and able leadership during the time that you flew 9,301 hours your squadron under extremely hazardous weather conditions, mountainous jungle terrain, and subjected to exceptionally close range hostile fire. Pretty amazing. So what we've got here now is Colonel LaVoy is holding the collage here of when he received the Legion of Merit from the General Green, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, for the Vietnam Squadron with MAG 16, HMM 364, and their accomplishments in coming home without the loss of any life. Very good, Colonel. Thank you. So, after receiving that wonderful award, you were called back to Washington, D.C. in 1965 to work for the Secretary of the Navy in the Office of Program Appraisal. And then you continued at the Pentagon until 1969 when you became President of the Naval Examining Board. And
I've forgotten that.
yeah. And then you wanted to get back to Nevada. I don't know what you were thinking, but that was in 1970, so you retired.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you hung up the bootstraps, and retirement ceremonies included a parade and retirement ceremonies at the Commandant's compound at 8th and I in Washington, D.C. That must have been quite an experience.
It was. It really was.
Yeah.
I have a picture if you want that.
And returning home to Nevada,
Excuse me just a minute, John. Just a minute.
so you were getting ready to go home to Nevada, but the reason that you retired was because you had two boys that you wanted to spend some time with.
Yeah.
But you were already coming up. You were getting in line I would call it, being groomed for your next promotion, which would have been coming had you not resigned and retired. You would have been a brigadier general.
Yep.
Yeah. And a well-deserved, and no telling where, you might have been the commandant of the first aviation command.
Yeah.
You might have beat General Amos. But you got home to Nevada, and you started teaching industrial arts at Hug High School. You started a second career.
Yeah.
1970, after everything that you did. You didn't take time out to rest. You got involved with the boys. And you got involved in high school.
Yeah.
And you had received your teaching credentials through night classes at the American University, I understand, in the University of Maryland. And so you've been a long proponent of good, strong industrial art class. How did you get involved in industrial arts? Was that something that you've always done?
Yeah, I kind of liked.
You liked it as a hobby, I guess.
Yeah.
Woodworking and everything else?
I always loved woodworking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You liked working with the young men over at Hug High School and helping to develop them just like you did your young Marines, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And they're still contacting you, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't forget that. So you did teaching for 11 years. And then you got a small ranch. That wasn't enough. You had to get a small ranch in Fallon, and you thoroughly enjoyed doing that, didn't you?
Oh, that was great.
Yeah. So it doesn't sound to me like there was much moss that grew on you for quite a while. You just kept on rolling. So you weren't sedentary in your retirement, and you served as president of the Fallon chapter of the Navy League, the chairman of the board for the parish council at St. Patrick's. You've been a grand knight of the Fallon Knights of Columbus, president of the Fraternal Order of Eagles, and active in the Fallon Rotary. And then you found some time to set aside one day a week to visit the sick and the shut-ins in the convalescence center, and also in the private homes in Fallon. You served on the board of Boy Scouts of America. You helped with scout troops in Hawaii, North Carolina, Virginia, served on the board for Boy Scouts of America in Reno, and you refer to yourself as chauffeur for Girl Scouts in Nebraska and Virginia, and also on the Parents Advisory Board for the Dominican College in San Rafael, California. And you're currently a member of the Marine Corps Aviation Association and the Retired Officers Association, and the Marine Corps Combat Pilots Organization. I don't know how you keep track of all of that, Colonel. Yes, your wife is sitting over saying you don't keep track of it. She is.
That's right.
I want to cover, Colonel, and this is hard for me to even read. These are your decorations. Colonel, over those years, Marine Corps, you earned the Legion of Merit with Combat V, Distinguished Flying Cross with 3 stars, 15 Air Medals, Navy Unit Commendation, the American Campaign Ribbon, Asiatic Campaign Ribbon, Meritorious Service Medal, the American Presidential Unit Citation, the Philippine Liberation Medal, the Philippine Republic Presidential Citation, the China Service Medal, the Armed Forces Expeditionary Services Medal, the National Defense Medal, the Korean Service Medal with 3 stars, the Korean United States Medal with Gold Star, the Korean Presidential Unit Citation, the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with 2 pounds, and the Vietnamese Campaign Medal. Now, Colonel, I've heard some stories here, and your wife is probably talking out of school here for you. So one of the things that we want to talk about is I heard this story about you and in American Samoa, where all you young hotshot pilots thought you were pretty good. So you were flying through a rock formation in your SPDs, and the rock formation had a hole on it.
Yeah,
And you guys were
flying through the hole.
flying through the hole.
Not today.
That was back when your skills and your proficiencies and your reaction time was honed to a very sharp point.
That's right.
Yeah.
And not as much sense either.
On the USS Langley. That's where they were working to carrier landing. And there were so many pilots that were there that they would say, well, we'll call you back when there's room to come. So they were there for a week or two and stayed at that lovely hotel in Chicago. The Marines had taken adored. And so it was all set up that there would be notices on the bulletin board of pilots, young Marines are invited to parties here and parties there. And so they would go out and, to these lovely, lovely estates in the Chicago area, and would be wined and dined and whatnot.
That was hard to take.
Yeah. And then after we were married, we stopped in Chicago on our honeymoon. We went back to Michigan and whatnot, but we stopped in Chicago, and every time we go into a theater or go into a restaurant, there'd be lines and lines of military men and their wives or girlfriends to go into the restaurants. And every time the manager would come back and he'd find the Marines, and he'd say to John and myself, and so he'd take us right ahead of everybody else into the restaurant, or ahead of everybody else into the movie theater. And if you don't think we didn't get some nasty.
Little favoritism there, huh?
Well, and you didn't have to pay for anything where
Yeah.
you went in Chicago.
Amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the days.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty amazed at what you accomplished in your career time, and it's quite a thing to have a career in the aviation side of it that you had, but with everything else that you added to it as you were going is pretty phenomenal. Getting the education, volunteering for all these organizations along the way and afterwards, that's a lot of personal time invested in a career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to personally thank you for what you did.
You're certainly welcome.
Well, with the ranch, it was so interesting. I was born and raised on a big cattle ranch in Elko. And John used to go up to the Callahan Ranch all the time and ride the horses up there and whatnot. So when he decided he was going to start raising bees as a hobby, and he didn't know where he was going to put the hives and whatnot. So, and they were, they kept swarming and he kept getting more and more hives, and of course, where was he going to put them? So we went out to Fallon to see if he could get just a small little place that he could put them on one of the ranches there. And the realtor said to him, well, now I have a very run-down little ranch. But she said, I want you to look at it. Well, my God, if you could have seen it. The weeds were this high. The house was rattle-tattle. Oh, it was just terrible. And he came home and he said, well, I don't think you'd like it. And I said, buy it. So we bought it. We had the happiest years of our life in Fallon.
Oh, it's wonderful.
We really, truly did. And I'll have to show you the home that we built out there. It was just really, Fallon was wonderful.
Oh, cool.
Happiest years of our life were there.
I'd like